Don't bogart that joint, my friend. Pass it over to me. Don't bogart that joint, my friend. Pass it over to me. Roll another one, just like the other one. You've been holding on to it, and I sure would like a hit. Don't bogart that joint, my friend. Pass it over to me. Don't bogart that joint, my friend. Pass it over to me.
Another one, just like the other one.
Just like the other one.
Mr. Nice bringing us in this morning on a special edition of Cannabis Corner. Yes, indeed, this is a special edition. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Man, oh man. Did Jeff Sessions start a firestorm or what? Holy Toledo. Why? Yesterday, of course, the big news is Jeff Sessions, a little upset here about this man, There's 875,000 espionage crimes going on in this country, and he's going to beat up marijuana. 56% of the United States right now has some form of medical marijuana going on, but yet Jeff Sessions wants to ignore the will of the states. And of course, Mr. Trump in the campaign, on the campaign trail, he said it, that's a state issue. I think we need to push it back to the states. But I'm going to ask you a question, ladies and gentlemen. Whom do your elected officials represent? No, that's not the echo chamber for GMO Tuesday. Because I asked that same question over there. Whom do your elected officials represent? We got crying Chuck and Nancy, Chancey, complaining, bitching, and moaning yesterday about what Jeff Sessions did. Since 2009, they have had the ability to write legislation to change this ridiculous, absurd law. And what have they done? No, they want to chase ghosts on some Russian collusion crap and waste our tax dollars. We're paying for that nonsense. Yesterday, of course, the big news, Jeff Sessions rescinds the Cole memo, what has been known as the Cole memo. Of course, the Cole memo came about from Deputy Attorney General, what's that guy's name? David Ogden's 2009 memo that let's not focus federal resources on going after marijuana. Okay. But before we go any further, I want to say this to everybody out there that this concerns. There's a lot of money involved here now. But I want to say this to everybody. Back in 1972, I became aware and kind of got pissed as how marijuana became illegal. NORML, the National Organization for Reform of Marijuana Laws, NORML, link in the description, ladies and gentlemen. Link will be in the description today. Also, I will go into depth. I am going to do an in-depth article. It might be 1 or 2 sections, 3 sections. I don't know. But I've already got It's already huge. But I'm going to write an in-depth article on this. Marijuana became illegal, one of the biggest propaganda games this country has ever seen. Pharmaceutical, DuPont, wood pulp paper was in play with William Randolph Hearst, the godfather of yellow journalism. It was a propaganda smear campaign, and make no mistake about it, Hearst pulled race into the cards. DuPont pulled race into the cards because all them black jazz cats, they would get high on that reefer out in the back there. They'd be getting high on that reefer. Them mean black jazz cats, they'd be all high on reefer chasing your white women. That was one of the ruses. That was one of the ruses. I've yet to see any black jazz cat get high on reefer and chase white women. I've been familiar with marijuana since 1972. I was a sophomore in high school. I wrote a paper on it. How marijuana became illegal. The propaganda game. The paper wasn't exactly on that. I used that subject matter. It was a propaganda. I wrote on propaganda and how people use propaganda to sway opinion. Think about it. Think about it. Whom do your elected officials represent, ladies and gentlemen? Alaska, California, Colorado, Washington, D.C., the capital of this country. Maine, Massachusetts, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington all have some form of legal marijuana. There are 28 states that have medical marijuana going on right now. When you talk to people, the number goes from 56% of the states that want the medical issue right now. 56% of this country say yes, medical marijuana is good. Jeff Sessions recently was seen coming out of a room with and somebody got a picture of his clipboard, and it was talking points. And who created these talking points? Representatives of the drug companies. Whose pocket is Jeff Sessions in? Think about this for a minute. The opioid producers don't want marijuana legal. Why? Because then they can't sell you opioids to sell you another drug to counter the opioid. Oh yeah, and by the way, they can't get the street drugs either with all that. I mean, think about that. When you run out of money to go buy the expensive pharmaceutical drugs, people are turning to the streets and buying heroin. Get a grip. Think about this. Whom do I'm going to beat this drum. I can't beat it any louder. Whom do your elected officials represent, ladies and gentlemen? This is nonsense. This is crazy. You see how excited I get? Do you see how riled up this guy? I mean, this is just insane. How many crimes are out there that Jeff Sessions could be prosecuting right now? He's turning his head. Is he in the Clinton camp? Is he part of the swamp? Did Donald J. Trump, our president, did our president make a mistake appointing this bozo? There's a lot of calls right now. Mr. Jordan, he's calling. He's saying, hey, step down, do your job or get out. And I don't blame him. I don't blame anybody in Congress right now for saying, Jeff Sessions, do your job or get out. He appointed a task force, Sessions did back in August of last year, and the task force, I had to laugh when I read this article this morning. The task force came up empty. They came up empty. Holy Toledo, cut it out. They came up empty. But he's relied on pharmaceutical companies, representatives, and spokespeople for talking points on marijuana. He's comparing, to heroin and blamed it for spikes in violence. Excuse me? Excuse me? 50,000 people die each year. Approximately 50,000 people die each year in alcohol-related deaths. 400,000 tobacco-related deaths. Nicotine, a drop A drop smaller than the point of that pin right there, smaller than that on your skin will cause you serious problems and put you in cardiac arrest. They took a pinhead drop and stuck it on the skin of a rabbit, and the rabbit ran in circles for 5 minutes and died. Boom. Just and died. That's how deadly nicotine is. But yet, Big Tobacco, the PR firm for Big Tobacco, now the PR firm for Monsanto and all the drug companies on the GMO issue, made it okay. Put a buttload of money in everybody's pockets. Made tobacco okay because the delivery device made it acceptable. Whom do your elected officials represent? Look, on the campaign trail, they have, Mr. Trump said, he said, marijuana, it should be pushed back down to the states. This is what I like about Donald J. Trump, our president, Chancey, said he is a big states' right person. He's pushing a lot of stuff back on the states. Think about that. He's pushing everything back on the states, which is where it should be. Now, I see everybody wanting to sue over a tax plan on states' rights, but yet you won't sue Vermont, Bernie Sanders, you fraud. You won't sue. Your state will not sue the government under the 10th Amendment on the food labeling bill that you passed. They took your state rights away, Bernie Sanders, and you won't sue. That's a piece of garbage, ladies and gentlemen. That man doesn't deserve your vote anymore. He doesn't deserve to be reelected. He deserves to be a foot in the butt and kicked out of office. That's what he deserves. He rolled right over. He didn't do anything to protect the state of Vermont's food labeling bill. When Debbie let me stab my constituents in the back, stab bin now, gave us a QR code. But yet, all these places want to, states' rights want to come back and sue just to cause Trump grief. But Trump is pushing this back on the states. He also said, more than one time when questioned, he also said this. Hey, the medical in, I don't have so much a problem. Do I think we should just let everybody run around smoking reefer? Nah, he didn't say it that way. I'm paraphrasing. But that was the gist of what he was saying. Look, I'm not so sure about the completely legalizing it end of it, but I think the medical marijuana has merit. Why haven't our legislatures pushed it? He's been in office a year, and all they've done is fight chasing a ghost about some Russian collusion that doesn't exist. Whom do your elected officials represent? Ladies and gentlemen, whom do they represent? Are they representing you? Are they representing me? Are they representing the guy on the corner? No, they want illegal aliens to have free health care. Why aren't they pushing for medical marijuana? It's a health delivery system. It's already been proven. Look, when all this happened in 2009, they say what you want about the guy who shouldn't have been president, who wasn't president. He was a figurehead. He was a face. One of the most divisive persons ever to sit in that office. He was a face. That's all he was. He was a puppet on a string for George Soros. We all know it. It's coming out every day. It gets bigger and bigger. But his administration, to his credit, I guess we could say, God, that's an oxymoron statement, isn't it? But they said, look, let's not go after the marijuana in this way. I'm going to, let me pull some stuff up here for just a second. Here's what they were saying. Prosecutors and law enforcement should focus only on the following priorities related to state legal cannabis operations. Preventing the distribution of marijuana to minors. Not a bad, that's legitimate. That's legitimate. I mean, educate. They're your children. Teach them. They're not mine. They're yours. You teach them. preventing revenue from the sale of marijuana from going to criminal enterprises, gangs, and cartels. That's a no-brainer. Preventing the diversion of marijuana from states where it is legal under state law in some form or another. And remember when a while back there was a big, all these states were suing Colorado. Oh, they're bringing marijuana in. No. That's what they're talking about. If it's not legal, for a while it wasn't legal in Nevada. You get buried, bring marijuana from California to Nevada. You cross the state line, boom. So preventing state-authorized marijuana, I already said that. Preventing violence and the use of firearms in the cultivation and distribution of marijuana. Preventing drugged driving and the exacerbation of other adverse public health consequences associated with marijuana use. Preventing the growing of marijuana on public lands and the attendant public safety of environmental dangers posed by marijuana production on public lands. People were going in state parks and doing all kinds of weird stuff, using banned chemicals. Last GMO Tuesday, I reported about banned chemicals and pesticides being used, herbicides being used, preventing marijuana possession or use on federal property. Now, let's make no mistake about this. It's federally illegal. Our federal law says no. Why? Whom do your elected officials represent? This has been going on for a long time. Since 2009, they've backed up. Well, I'm sorry, dumb Obama. Why didn't you push for legislation? Why wasn't legislation pushed for? Why hasn't legislation been pushed for? Whom do your elected officials represent? I'm going to read from yesterday. Let me pull it up here real quick. An organization, blah, blah, blah. Let me see here. Dooby dooby doo, bop bop ba da 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 da. Let me see here. From those are comments. I didn't want that part of it. I want the other part of it. Editor-in-chief of Canna Consumer Magazine and Cannabis Travel Blog. Let me see where this guy's statement is now. For immediate release, January 4th, 2018, Aaron Smith, the executive director at National Cannabis Industry Association, said that the news, while being depressing, in light of the fact that 73% of the voters oppose federal interference. Again, 73%. That's a huge jump from 56. 73%. Again, we the people want something, just like 90% wanted food labeling. And what did we get? Whom do your elected officials represent? I don't know, but it's not us right now, is it? Is it us? Think about it. Think about it. However, what the major change in enforcement policy on the horizon? This has been, still will be, a matter of prosecutorial discretion. Now, that said, we didn't hear anything about going to get the medical end of it. We just heard the recreational. That threatens the recreational end, is what that does. And California's had a heyday the last 2 days. Even CNN was doing bong hits. While I don't advocate, you won't see me get high on TV. You won't see me get drunk and drive a car, smoke weed and drive a car. You won't see me get intoxicated and get behind the wheel of a vehicle. My understanding that Jimmy Carter was going to try to get marijuana, ease it up a little bit, but they couldn't develop a test, a field sobriety test, to gauge how intoxicated you were on marijuana. It's a very difficult thing to do, so it creates a little dichotomy for law enforcement. I will say this. if we the people stopped and attacked this in a different way, we might have a little better luck with whom do your elected officials represent. Whom do they represent? Understand how marijuana became illegal, number one. And hemp got tagged into it too, because wood pulp paper at the time, paper was being made with hemp. A majority of our paper was made with hemp. Materials, cloth, rope, especially ship rope, made with hemp. Hemp is a form of cannabis. It got lumped in, and marijuana was the easy way to go to get hemp, because that's what they were really after. Mannitol was not being recommended or used. It was a synthetic THC, which is the active ingredient in marijuana that does pain and stuff. But when that happened, and they do this big propaganda game about all the black jazz cats, I go, look at the posters if you think I'm lying. Hang on, let me see if I can pull one up while we're here, why I'm talking. But the next step is to understand how marijuana became a Schedule I narcotic. Does anybody know? Take a guess, take a guess, take a guess. How did it become a Schedule I narcotic? When? Tricky Dicky. Oh, remember Tricky Dicky? You keep hearing Watergate, you got to know who Tricky Dicky is. Yeah, you got to know who Tricky Dicky is. Let me see here. Reefer Madness. Let's pull one of those posters up. Let's see if we can get a poster come up. Here it is, right there. I happen to have an original one. Look at the image. See the little white girl? They put that in your subconscious. Vicious racket with its arms around your children. Degradation, vice, insanity, sin, debauchery. Yeah, let me see here. Let's go back and look at another one. Yeah, I have that one also. Here's another one where they put the subconscious little subliminal messages in there. Let me see if, but they is that one too? No, that's not it. Anyways, you get the idea. You get the idea of what's going on here now. Women cry for it, men die for it. I don't know anybody who died for marijuana. I don't know anybody who died from marijuana, and I don't know anybody who smoked a joint and turned into a heroin addict next week either. And that's what the ruse with Reefer Madness was. Understand how it became illegal. And then let me see if I can pull this up too, because this is really it was Tricky Dicky that made marijuana a Schedule I narcotic. And why do you think he had marijuana classified as Schedule I narcotic? Any idea? Think about that and let it sink in for just a minute. Why would Richard Nixon make marijuana a Schedule I narcotic? Why would he have the DEA reclassify that? He hated John Lennon. Give peace a chance. He hated John Lennon. He didn't want John Lennon to become a citizen of the United States. John Lennon smoked marijuana. He was open about smoking marijuana. Hey, let's make it a Schedule I. We can stop his citizenship. That is how it became a Schedule I narcotic. Not because it's as dangerous as heroin, as Jeff Sessions wants us to believe. That's his talking point. Not because the black jazz cats are going to smoke reefer and go get the white women. No, because he hated John Lennon. Cut it out. understand how it became illegal, understand how it became a Schedule I narcotic. Ladies and gentlemen, we know. Let's undo it. Whom do your elected officials represent? One of the ways that they put the kibosh on this, it has been a cash and carry operation. Let's say on the corner of 5th and Main, we have Aaron's Dispensary. I can't make bank deposits because they want to get me for money laundering because it's a federal crime. I can't sell marijuana legally per federal law, just on the state law. So what companies are having to do is find state-run banks, state banks, and not banks tied into the Federal Reserve. That's a difficult thing to do. So what do? I get my brother, or I get a friend, I get somebody else that doesn't have my name to open a bank account and set up a phony business front. That is called money laundering. Let's say that again. I get somebody to set a business up with a phony name. That's the bank account. That's where it goes. That is called money laundering. That's how they do it. Yeah, they're talking about it every day. Some places, I've seen the big thing right now, the Clinton Foundation, a 501c3. Money laundering is what they're saying there. So think about it, all the different ways that they're trying to beat this industry to death by making everything illegal, making everything not kosher, making everything against what we the people want. Over the last 60 years, it has been more profitable because reefer madness hit us in 1942. So it's been 45. I've known for 45 years how marijuana became illegal and why it became a Schedule I narcotic. I have known that. I was a sophomore in high school. Now, since 1942, which is what, 40, 60, 67, take 5, 62 years now. 62 years. 65 years, I'm sorry. Marijuana has been illegal, and it up until 20 years ago, actually up until the 70s, when Oregon, California, and these people started decriminalizing marijuana instead of locking people up for 6-7 years for a joint. I knew a guy that got caught. He had 2 ounces of weed. Back then in the 60s, he called it cans. I had 2 cans of weed. The guy did 12 years. I want you to think about this for a minute. He did 12 years. The guy next to him in a cage did 18 months for child molesting. That is how warped our legislatures are. That is how warped our legislatures are. Whom do your elected officials represent? A little bit of weed, he goes to jail for a while. They've passed a bunch of laws. If you have over an ounce, you're breaking the state law. Okay. You know, what do you need more than an ounce for anyway? You can't roll in a joint and smoke it at one time, for crying out loud. Is this... I just think we all need to stop, take a big step back, and start communicating with each other on a different level and attack this from a different perspective. Understanding how it became illegal is the first step to unraveling the legislation. It's just that simple. And I ask you today, ladies and gentlemen, it is an election year for Congress. Whom do your elected officials represent? My personal opinion, Jeff Sessions has not done his job. He has had a year to do his job. He has not done his job. He needs to go. He wants to attack marijuana when you have all these people, everything going on out there with espionage, with the Department of Justice lying, trying to set people up for crimes they didn't commit. Bogus investigations. Oh, by the way, all our taxes are paying for that, ladies and gentlemen. And he wants to attack marijuana. Our taxes are paying his salary to attack something we want. He's not in office to do what he wants. He's in office to represent us, we the people, just like our legislatures are there to represent we the people. And I will ask you again, whom do your elected officials represent? Whom do they represent, ladies and gentlemen? That is what you need to ask this year. When you go to the polls, understand how it's been illegal. If you want to start, I'm going to put some links in the description here. If you want to start, and be sure to go to the website, ladies and gentlemen, because I will have an in-depth article. And as I said, the information is starting to really pile up on this article, so I may have to break it into a couple articles. But we're going to talk about it, and we're going to keep it in front of people. Be sure to tune in. This is a special edition, Cannabis Corner Special Edition. And I think we all maybe send Jeff Sessions an email. Catch him on Twitter at Jeff Sessions. Are you crazy? I did. I point blank asked him on Twitter. All the legitimate crime going on, and you want to come get marijuana. But, however, before we get out of here, let's put it in perspective. On a federal level, whom do your elected officials represent? They have not represented we the people. If 73% of we the people want something, why aren't we getting it? Pharmaceutical companies, pharmaceutical manufacturers, drug manufacturers, chemical manufacturers don't want it legal because it gets into their pocketbook. It's a lot safer than addictive opioids. I've never, I'm sorry, if you're addicted to marijuana, you need a shrink. You don't need a rehab. I have yet to ever have any kind of withdrawal or anything that I've heard other people experience with other types of narcotics and drugs. It just isn't happening. It grows wild, ladies and gentlemen, and half the time they're tearing up marijuana fields. It's really hemp. It's not marijuana. So check the website out. We'll have some detailed information over there. A lot of links. I'll put some links in the description here today, ladies and gentlemen. You can go chase this stuff and understand it for yourself. But I ask you again, whom do your elected officials represent? Because this has gotten insane with the marijuana on a federal, state level. Whom do your elected officials represent? Let's turn the heat up on our elected officials and start forcing them. If they don't do our bidding, vote them out of office and get somebody in there that is going to represent we the people and not big pharmaceutical companies and corporations. That's not why they're in Washington, D.C. We send them to represent our best interests. That's how the government is supposed to work in the United States of America. What I see going on is a government like we see in Russia. People doing the bidding of the highest bidder, not we the people. Chancey. That's right, I'm talking to you, Chucky and Nancy. Chancey, I like that. Hashtag Chancey. Beat him up on Twitter, folks. Hashtag Chancey. Get him. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you hear, give us a thumbs up. Of course, we're always looking for sponsors, advertisers for the Cannabis Corners segment on GMO Tuesday. GMO Tuesday coming up right around the corner. And don't forget, I'll have Weekend Wrap. We'll get something on the Weekend Wrap. And hey, as Mr. Nice says, roll another one, just like the other one, and pass it over to me. Hey, that's what they said. That was that song is really old too. But just for giggles, let's let him play us out, okay? Another one. I remember when this came out, man. Hey, we were having a ball with it. Don't bogart that joint, my friend. And when people did do that, we'd call him Humphrey. Yeah, I don't know that Humphrey Bogart smoked the joint. But that was a key that you were taking too long with that joint and you need to pass it over. Whom do your elected officials represent, ladies and gentlemen? Let's turn the heat up on them. If you like what you hear, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the station. Hey, that's how it works. That's how it works. If you can donate, hit the website. We can always use a little help keeping the lights on. It is great. Ladies and gentlemen, and please, do not get intoxicated. Don't get behind the wheel. Be responsible with your herbology and smoking and whatever you want to call it, medicating. I don't care. Just be responsible. Don't be going and driving when you're 9 seats into the wind. It's not worth it to you. It's not worth it to me or anybody else. Let's have a great day, ladies and gentlemen, and let's all be safe out there, huh?